Political analyst Brian Sobel. Brian, the president can talk unity, he can talk bipartisanship, but watching him there, I could only look at Kevin McCarthy the whole time. I mean, he did still stand up twice, maybe 3 times, but I kept thinking, will the GOP actually work with Biden, a president who most likely wants to be president yet again?
That's an open question. I think McCarthy tried to set the scene. He basically at times quieted the GOP side, or at least signaled to them to be quiet. There were a couple of outbursts which we never like to see in a State of the Union address. President Biden talked about unity and working together, and I think McCarthy, in turn, is talking the same language. In Washington, D.C., it sometimes falls apart about there.
Are there any key issues that the president left out that he should have hit on tonight that you think should have been addressed? Let's get your take, and then we'll go over to Brian.
Yeah, I think on the heels of this weekend, the U.S. shooting down the Chinese spy balloon, right? The president had an opportunity to be fierce and to say we're going to hold Chinese accountable. He touched very briefly on the topic of this and didn't expound. And so Republicans have been critical of his handling of that situation. I think they will continue to be in the days to come because he very briefly touched on it.
Why would he briefly touch on it? Why not touch on it? This is in the news. It's making headlines right now.
I think he was afraid, frankly, of further angering the Chinese government and Xi Jinping, and so he held back. But he had all kinds of opportunities to talk about what the United States should be doing in dealing with the Chinese government, including, don't send balloons, don't do things like that. We will react, and we'll react as we should. He didn't go there, and I thought that was one part of the speech that I thought was very, very curious. And one other point, if I may say, we know when he was talking about the opioid crisis and all of that a lot of the fentanyl is coming in and is manufactured in China. So,
and you could hear the Republicans in the House. They got loud at that point, saying this is your fault. How can you talk about fentanyl when we have the
southern border?
He doesn't say what about immigration. He maybe spent 30 seconds.
Barely touched on immigration. And again, if you're going to talk about the opioid crisis and fentanyl, where's most of that coming in? It's coming in on the southern border, and the cartels are sending it in by the millions of units. And so that was curious too. But I have to say that Joe Biden had vigor tonight. He had some very good lines in the State of the Union speech, and he really fed his base very nicely.
So saying that, recent poll numbers not promising for Joe Biden. Even among the Democratic Party, did he win over the Democratic Party? Did he convince Democrats out there who may be wavering, saying, will we support him if he decides to run again, you think?
Again, it always comes down to the economy. And in America right now, there are a lot of people suffering. I don't know, Greg, what you thought about that, but...
And I think 37%, right, we allude to those polls, 37% of Democrats do not think he should run for a second term. And he knew that coming in, and he tried to address the economy. It's incredibly low, especially from your own party. But this was sort of the Joe Biden, I think, that Democrats wanted to see. Someone who was going to go toe-to-toe with Republicans, somebody who would go off script, which is certainly what he did. And this was, I think, performance-wise, one of his better speeches in going off the cuff, being sharp, and something he obviously practiced this speech numerous times before tonight.
He did, and you think about it, when he was addressing the GOP on spending caps, on Medicare, on Social Security, he was talking really about a minority of those people that actually want to cap things. The third rail in politics is talking about cutting Social Security or Medicare, because the next election you're not around.
And he was goading them, and he knew he was going to get a reaction out of them, and he certainly got that out of them. And that is surely the clip that Democrats and their strategists will run over the next few days.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
What about the Republican response? Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she came out with a very strong, she's one of the youngest governors, and you have, juxtapose that with one of the oldest president in American history. How do you think she did tonight?
Well, she gave a good speech, and it was powerful. But again, both individuals are feeding their bases. But she's got an interesting story, right? She was in the White House.
Press secretary.
She now a governor and a female governor. She has a lot to stand on, and she really went after the president quite aggressively in her speech.
And a rising star in the party.
I was going to say, she's 40,
right?
Youngest governor following the oldest president of the United States. That image right there in itself, what's that say about the Republican Party regarding who they may nominate?
Well, the juxtaposition was planned, and so the Republicans, I think, scored one there.
Okay.
All right.
Brian, Greg, thank you.